Good morning. I think I'm surprised so many people are here with the Olympics on, but we'll start with the chant. Lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness to light. Lead us from death to immortality. Light us through and through with thy ever-effulgent being. Peace, peace, peace be unto us all. Well, the song that the choir sang tells you the ultimate of what to remember. We're going to start on a little more mundane level. My idea is all of us are living in this world. We have a certain recognition of this world. We're told by Vedanta that this world is an illusion. But for the time being, it is very, very real because we have not realized the illusory part of it. We're told over and over again, it's like a dream, and one day you will wake up and you'll realize it's a dream. But this is a realization. It's not something we can intellectually understand it, but until we actually experience it, it is a philosophy that we base our actions on. So when I say things we need to remember, it's really we're going to discuss how to navigate Maya, how to get through it, how to deal with it. Every religion in the world has given us blueprints for it. In Hinduism, it's the yamas and the niyamas. In Buddhism, it's the Eightfold Path. In Christianity, it's the Ten Commandments. In Islam, it's the 5 Pillars of Islam. All of these are ways of dealing with the world we live in. How to negotiate it, how to form a relationship with it, how to go beyond it. But today we're going to talk about the things we have to remember in negotiating it. And the basis of our relationship with the world, with Maya, is one of values or ideals. We have certain ideas, and we have ideals how we think things should be, or how we want ourselves to be. In the Gospel, Sri Ramakrishna said, "A man will cherish that he is the doer as long as he has not seen God. So long will he know the distinction between good and bad actions." This awareness of the distinction between his good and his bad actions is due to God's Maya, and it is necessary for the purpose of running this illusory world. This is what keeps it going. Our misidentification with our ego, thinking that we're in charge, that we can change things, that we are the ones who do things. Okay? And we do each day. But we have to eventually get the attitude that I am the operator, I'm the machine, not the operator. I do as God makes me do. Now, in order to reach that, we have to have an idea of good and bad. We have to have an ideal system or a value system. And that's what our religions give us. The 5 Pillars of Islam say that you have one God, Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger. You have to pray 5 times a day. That is one of the precepts. Giving to charity, and pilgrimage to Mecca at least once in your life. Fasting during Ramadan. Now, if we notice all of these things, mentally focus your mind on God. Giving charity and treating every visitor as if he were a visitor from God is also taking the emphasis off yourself. The 10 Commandments of the Christian faith. I am the Lord thy God, have no graven images before me. Don't take the Lord's name in vain. Keep the Sabbath holy. Honor thy father and mother. Do not kill, do not commit adultery, do not steal. Do not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Do not covet thy neighbor's wife. Do not covet thy neighbor's property. Once again telling us, the first 4 commandments set us up to put our entire emphasis on one God. The others tell us how to behave in the society that we live in. The yamas and the niyamas are divided into the yamas, which tell us abstention from harming anyone, abstention from stealing, abstention from greed, and maintaining continence. These are ways of dealing with your physical being and your interaction with society. Buddhism says right faith, right aspirations, right speech, right conduct, right livelihood, right effort. Can't even read my own writing. Right mindfulness and right contemplation. So we see once again, every one of them gives us a portion to do with society and how to get along with each other and how to treat each other. The other half says how to approach God, how to approach our faith. Now I'm going to read you a very, very simplified way to get along in the world, because today we're only going to discuss how to get along with the day-to-day living. How do we interact with the people we meet? How do we approach life? It's almost like we're all coming out of a cave after a long spell. And some of our social skills may have gotten a little rusty. It seems like there's a little more frustration that's near the surface, a little more impatience with the people you're encountering, because we haven't had to do it for about a year. We have dealt with them on Zoom or on FaceTime, and you can always walk off. So I'm going to tell you, there was a book written in the 80s. All I really needed to know about how to live and how to do and how to be, I learned in kindergarten. Now, some of you will remember that. And the things that Robert Fulham learned was share everything. Okay, does that relate to do not covet, do not covet anything, don't steal anything? Of course. Play fair. Now, what is playing fair? Not taking advantage, not cheating, and don't hit people. This was a major one in kindergarten. When you go out in the playground, don't hit them when they don't do what you want. Okay, but think about it. It's really telling you to take a minute or two to get a hold of your own emotions before you lash out. I mean, it sounds really silly and simple, but very necessary. Don't hit anyone. Don't yell at people in your car when they cut you off. Put things back where you find them. Why would that be important in the rest of life? Because most of us live with other people. And even if we live by ourselves, if we don't put things back where we find them, we spend an awful lot of our time running around looking for them. I know because I don't put my phone in any one place. And I think almost everyone in the convent can say, I'm always going around looking. Has anyone seen my phone? And they're always offering, well, I'll call you and see where it is. But usually I have it turned off, so that doesn't help too much. Put things back where you find them. It makes life simpler. You have time for other things. Clean up your own mess. That was the next thing he said. Also very, very useful. Who wants to clean up someone else's mess all the time? It's very important to learn this. Clean up after yourself. You make a mess, deal with it. Don't take things that aren't yours. Okay, now we can all see that because that gets into don't hit people too. They'll hit you. Say you're sorry when you hurt someone. It doesn't take any effort to say you're sorry. And you have to recognize that you've hurt them, either verbally or physically or emotionally. And learn to say you're sorry about it. Oftentimes people get embarrassed or they get guilty feelings come on and it becomes an insurmountable wall that they can't get over to say, I'm sorry. If we don't say it right away, then it becomes something we can often, mull over in our minds over and over, and it becomes a much bigger deal. I know when I first moved into the convent, Swami Prabhavananda, because we were 8 people, he said one of the rules of the convent, not cast in concrete, but that we had to settle all disputes before bedtime. You had to clear up everything before you said goodnight to people. And first thing in the morning, you had to say good morning to everyone. Now this sounds really, that's one of your spiritual disciplines? But it does make a huge difference. We've had, in the past, there have been people who have gotten a little, they harbor angers. And so they would come in and they wouldn't speak to anyone and they'd sit at the breakfast table like, this is not good for them or for us. So maintaining relationships is one of the important parts of getting through Maya. This one we know well. Wash your hands. Wash your hands before eating. This was one of Robert Fulham's that you learned in kindergarten. Well, we have been doing that a lot this last year. Wash, sanitize, flush. Warm cookies and milk are good for you. That's taking care of yourself and taking care of your family. It shows love, kindness. I'm concerned about you. These things all help in these are a whole long list of things to remember, but we know them all already. Take a nap every afternoon. Why would he say that's important? Because so often we get so busy with action that we don't take time to slow down. It's very easy to get very busy with, I have to do this and I have to do that and I have to meet this. I've done it for years. when I turned 70, I went, now you can take a nap. And that's all I needed was permission from myself to do it. Doesn't have to be long. In India, they do this. Everyone takes a nap during the hottest part of the day. And it makes sense, but they also stay up really late. Live a balanced life. This is the part that so often it's not that we hold ourselves to a very, very rigid routine often. I don't know exactly what it is. Sometimes it's justifying ourselves. Sometimes it's thinking we have to meet other people's expectations of us. There's all kinds of reasons why we set very rigid expectations of ourselves. His idea of a balanced life was learn to think some, learn to draw, learn to paint, dance, play, and work every day. But allow yourself all of these things every day so that you're not becoming, I won't say unhappy, but discontent. Like you feel like your nose is to a grindstone and is this going to end? If we allow ourselves a certain amount of, yes, rest time, sit down and don't do anything. That's how Einstein got his theory of relativity, seemingly sitting down and just thinking. In today's world, we don't tend to allow ourselves to just, people will say, what are you doing? And how often do you want to say, well, I'm just sitting. I'm just sitting here. I'm kind of vegging out. I don't know what I'm doing. But how many times do you suddenly say, well, I'm just about to go out and water the garden. I was just resting for a minute. We have to allow ourselves that time. It's part of being a balanced human being. Finding some joy in life. Finding contentment in life. Because after all, those are two of the reasons we come to religion. Most of us want to be happier than we are before we find it. There's something in our lives that is causing us to say, there has to be more to this than what I'm doing. And most of us want a certain degree of contentment or peace of mind. We don't want to be caught in this mind that's constantly rolling around, which is very, very difficult in today's world, especially if you watch the news, and especially coming out of this semi-isolation, not having a lot of interaction with other people to get different perspectives. The only perspective that we seem to have is what we get on the internet, on the television, or through whatever news vehicle you use. We can call our friends and talk to them, and that is one of the healthiest things, but now that we can actually get out and see friends, it's much, much better. And the other thing that Robert Fulghum said was to be aware of wonder. To be aware of it, to be aware of the things that are in this world that we don't really have an explanation for, but they're gorgeous and beautiful. She said in kindergarten, I think everyone has done this, if not in kindergarten. I didn't go to kindergarten. I'm a deprived child. They didn't have one when I was a child, where I lived. So everyone plants a seed in a little styrofoam cup, so you can see how a plant grows. I'm doing that now in the vegetable garden, and I'm watching these things. I pull carrots out too early because I keep checking to see if they've grown yet. They're about this big. Anyway, and you watch the seed and you watch the cup, and pretty soon the leaves start to come up. And he says, be aware of the wonder. No one knows how or why, but we all do that. We start out small and we grow and we blossom. The other thing to remember is goldfish, hamsters, white mice, and even the little plant in the styrofoam cup die. And so do we. It is inevitable if we are alive. So if we can, this is another reason why we seek religion, because we know that in our heart of hearts that all things end. And we know eventually we too, this will end. And we want to not be afraid of it. We want to come to terms with it. His last admonition for dealing with Maya was, now none of you are going to remember this unless you're my age, Dick and Jane books. You may have seen them in the libraries. And the first word they ever had you learn was look. And he said, remember, that's the biggest word of all, look. Look around you and actually see it. I think we've seen it in so many self-help books and so many, in every religion also. Be here now. Live in the moment. Be aware of where you are and what you're doing. Don't sit here and think about the little Japanese fellow who won the skateboard championship last night and how well he did, because that's over. It's not going to happen again. And don't sit here planning what the next item on the agenda is. Actually be where you are whenever you are. If you're out on a walk, instead of being on our cell phones and looking at other things, look at where you are. We're in one of the most beautiful places in the world. And every day is completely different. And when you go out for a walk, you see something new every single day. It's never the same. Just this morning, one of our nuns saw two baby deer coming across Ladera Lane and two baby deer crossing East Valley Road when she was taking her walk. We see these things constantly, and if we're thinking about, too caught in our own mind or in our devices, you miss those things. And we can't divorce ourselves from Maya. We're here. And we're going to have to come to terms with it. Now we can say it's all an illusion. And that we can say it's an illusion, it's not real. But for us right now, it is real. Because that is what we're dealing with. So we have to, in order to get that peace of mind and that happiness, it's easier if we find beliefs and systems that let us come to terms with it, with our neighbors, with our society, with ourselves. Come to terms with it and live smoothly rather than abrasively. We all have this, I mean, there's so many abrasive, aggressive things going on in the world, but is that the world that we would really like to live in? I don't think so. And it's a world that says people are different. If they've gotten this much schooling, if they're that color, if they come from that country, they're not the same as us. Well, of course they are. Because a human being is a human being, and we all have the same desires, the same wants, the same needs. When we start emphasizing those differences, then we create problems for ourselves. And when I say for ourselves, I mean really for us individually, because we increase our fear. Oh dear, that person is going to do, you see someone and you think immediately. I mean, look at the things that were happening in New York with the Asian Americans, with the Black Americans. People seeing difference and creating predicting a behavior. No one can predict a behavior. That's living in some imaginary world that doesn't exist. However, if you keep predicting it, you might have a self-fulfilling prediction. Because your reaction is fear and difference and, oh my God, I've got to take care, I can't do this. If you greet everyone, if you see everyone as the same as yourself, literally see them as the same as yourself, which all of this is, don't hit anyone, we clean up after, these are what everyone has to do. It would make a much more cohesive, manageable world. It probably won't happen, because that too is part of Maya, that there's a balance always of good, bad, peace, war. There's always a balance somewhere. I don't think we have to emphasize the negativity all the time. I noticed that on the local news station now, they're actually saying on one of the local stations, we are going to start telling about the people in the community who are doing good to the community, instead of all the news being about the shooting or the person who, the robbing. We're going to balance it with the good things that people are doing. And people all over the world are doing really good things, because we do have that sense of values and those ideals that keep Maya going for the entertainment of the gods that be. Until we get out of the game, we win. But, yeah. So each person has to find where they are and negotiate Maya. We're all in different places when we arrive. We arrive with our past samskaras and our past karmas. We arrive in this birth, which pretty much predicts where we're born, who we're born to. We're born to the people in the family that we will have the best ability to work out our own samskaras. So this is on the truly Advaitic plan. All of our problems are of our own creation, and in that way it gives us tremendous freedom, because if they're of our own creation, we are the ones who can correct it by making these choices in life as Ramakrishna said, as long as we think we're doing it, we're doing what we're doing, we have a sense of good and evil. And we have a sense of what good behavior is and bad behavior. In the Katha Upanishad, it stresses completely that if we want to get off this wheel of birth and rebirth, birth, death, rebirth, that we must make choices between the good and the pleasant. So, as long as we, as I say, we think we're taking care, that we can change something, that I can earn, I don't know, good karma if I do so much charity work, or if I do so much selfless work. As long as I think that I'm doing it, then you have to choose the good rather than the pleasant. Once you get past that point where you think that you are doing it, rather than you're being the instrument of God, then you don't make those choices between the good and the pleasant, because it is completely automatic. And for that reason, that is the reason that we choose to do what we do in our lives. Now, this is a very, very generous, selfless community, for the most part. There are so many things in our community where people are doing volunteer work expecting nothing in return, just simply because they want to help, or because, as one of our ex-Sunday school children said when he grew up, I've lived a privileged life. I need to find out how everyone else lives and do something. He joined the Marine Corps, much to his parents. Anyway, and he's out now, so that's good. But when we look at our own lives and evaluate what we're doing with them. Are we doing what we think we want to do? Are we living it the way we would like to live it? One of the hardest things for me still is setting a routine. And a routine is one of the most useful things in the entire world, because it really does free up your mind. And if you have trouble with the routine, somehow get a dog or a cat. Nothing sets your routine like taking care of a little animal that needs to go out, needs to get fed, needs to have everything done at certain times. They're wonderful. Have children. You have to set routines for your children, depending upon what phase of life you're in. According to the Vedic scriptures, there are 4 phases of life. There's the student phase, when you are to sharpen your intellect study, mental acuity. When you finish that, you take the ability to learn into the next phase of life, which is the householder's life. There you develop a discriminating mind and use it with the ability, keep the mental acuity of your student days, the ability that you learned, not what you learned, but how to learn. That was the ancient Indian purpose of the schools, or the gurukulas. Not teaching people information, but teaching them how to learn continually for the rest of their life. So in the householder stage, you take care of all of the business that goes along with owning a house, earning money, and making the right choices so that you are going to be, yes, successful. You'll be successful. You will raise a good family. And then you will be able to go on to the next phase of life. And you will find a certain joy in that, joy and satisfaction in doing the householder life well. Then you, according to the ancient Vedic scriptures, the next phase is the hermit's life, vanaprastha, where you go into more seclusion and you have the bliss of the knowledge of Brahman. You have not had the experience of Brahman yet, but your mind has a joy of knowing that it's true intellectually. And the last phase is sannyas, which is a mind that is the goal of it is to meditate and realize your own divinity. At that point, your mind is still, calm, and undisturbed. And there you know the bliss of Brahman, not the knowledge of Brahman, but the bliss of Brahman. Now, you do not have to go through every phase. Depending upon your karma and your samskaras, you may skip a phase or jump from one. Skip a phase, like skip a grade. But it is the goal of all life to realize your divinity. And we're all getting there eventually. Some are going more quickly and more consciously. But even if you're not going quickly or consciously, you are going there, because that is the goal of life. To experience God. To know your oneness with the infinite. And have that complete bliss and joy. Swamiji said that one of the first earmarks of someone that is well on the path to realization is they are joyful. He said they don't go around with sad faces. They're finding joy in everyday life because they are on the path to realization. And you can tell if they're enjoying what they're doing and if they're happy with what they're doing. It's like any pursuit we have. When you're happiest, you're doing where your heart is. And if your heart is in finding God, you're happiest there. So, we don't want to see any gloomy people around. I think I'm rather addicted to the Olympics, and I've been trying to figure out exactly why. But every year I watch them, I kind of phase out, and I want to watch the Olympics and nothing but the Olympics. But I think it's because I'm trying to analyze this. One of the reasons is because I think it's one of the most wonderful showings of how everyone from all the different countries, some I never even heard of, are getting together and all doing what they love. Now, you watch the competitions and they're competing against the other people, but they're really competing against themselves. They're trying to be the best of the best that they can do. I saw an interview with Simone Biles, and she said, she does everything perfectly and gets the highest score every time. She walked off, got the highest score, and she had this look like, and someone said, "What?" And she said, "I can do better than that." And I admire that impetus to do that. We can all have that push to do better, to go forward and pursue our spiritual life. And I think I'll stop there. If there's any questions, please ask them. If they're not, you can ask me out on the porch when you get your mask off.
Whatever I may do, wherever I may be, upon the highest mountain, or sailing across the sea, as long as I remember, you're always here with me, through every joy and sorrow. Your love is all I need. You've given eyes to see, a voice to sing your name, that these ears delight to hear, like the gentle soothing rain. You brighten all the world with your power and your light, making the sun to rise each morning and the moon to rise at night. I see you in each face, I feel you in my heart. Guide my every footstep as I journey here and far. You fill me up with song and make my feet to dance. I'm really just your instrument that responds to your mere glance. Whatever I may do, wherever I may be, on the highest mountain, or sailing across the sea, as long as I remember, you're always here with me, through every joy and sorrow. Your love is all I need. As long as I remember, you're always here with me, through every joy and sorrow. Your love is all I need.
Thank you. I think Jayanti said what I meant to say so quickly and so succinctly. This next week, we'll have the Eternal Companion on Wednesday afternoon at 5 o'clock here in the temple and on Zoom and YouTube. We'll have the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna reading Saturday at 5 here in the temple and Zoom and YouTube. And next week, we'll kind of have the other half of this talk on how to come to terms with our spiritual direction. The title will be, When Will You Be Happy? And I'll be giving that talk. This is something glitched in our programming in Hollywood, and that's what's happening. We'll end with a chant. Om Purnamadam Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Filled with Brahman are the things we know. Filled with Brahman are the things we see. Filled with Brahman, all is filled with Brahman. From Brahman floweth all, and yet is Brahman still the same. Om Shanti Shanti. Peace, peace, peace. I get confused with Sanskrit and English.